like my little baby.
Right.
The people who know me on this line, I think they'd be better suited for them to chime in, but I'll tell you what. um, okay, so if I had to say what my most favorite, probably a most popular one is, it's a sermon titled "Go for Yours," and I use a snippet of it in my devotional for Reverend Dr. Michelle Guidry on She Preaches.
Right.
And "Go for Yours" is Numbers 27, the daughters of Zelophehad. Truly inspired by that story. You have these 5 bad, bodacious, beautiful girls who made a decision to go for theirs. They made a decision to go for the inheritance that rightfully belonged to them. And they did it probably fearfully, but did it anyway. I say in my sermon that was their civil rights movement. That was their women's march. That was their hashtag Israelite Girls Lives Matter movement. You know, it was I have found that story, it covers a multitude of topics. It's not just about a group of women. It's not just a story about girls or daughters. It transcends gender. It transcends race. It's about equality. And it's about taking a stand for what you want. Everybody can relate to that. And it preaches well to the young. It preaches well to the seasoned saints. It's just a very inspiring story. And I love preaching it. I love talking about how they showed up. They just came to the tent of meeting. It was a risk, but they did it. They took the risk. And I think that's the moral of the story. You just have to take the risk. Sometimes you just have to show up. You can't wait for an invitation. If I waited for an invitation to do things, I'd be nowhere right now. And it's not to say that I'm anywhere in a lofty way, but I wouldn't have a fulfilling life as I do now if I waited for people to make a way for me, if I waited for people to invite me. One of the things I always say is, she believed she could, so she did. That's who I am. I think I can do it, so I'm going to try. One of my friends, he said this, and I think this is like probably the most accurate description of me. He said, by the time Tisha tells you she's thinking about it, she's really already done it. Like, it's already done. If she says she's thinking about it, it's pretty much a done deal. And that's kind of who I am, but I'm reminded of you girls so much. And I preach this sermon to myself a lot because every stage in life I have to remind myself to show up. I have to remind myself to show people what I'm made of. One of the points that I talk about is, people will look at you, especially, Black woman from Brooklyn, wear a mohawk, right? You don't look like anybody's preacher. And so they'll assume that they have you pegged, or they'll assume they know everything about you just by looking at you. But you have to show them what you're made of. You know the saying, you can't judge a book by its cover. My job is when you take the time to open the book, I got to give you something real good to read. That's how I feel about, like, okay, judge the book by its cover, but when you open it, I'm going to give you a real juicy story to read. Right? And so,
No, go ahead.
No, so that's this passage of scripture with these 5 daughters. It just inspires me, and like I said, it inspires me to show up, show them what I'm made of, and I say that if you do that, then God will show out. God will change all of the rules in your favor if you take that step. Yeah.
I feel like God just gave you revelation as you were speaking, because in many of the things that you just said, it just reminded me of like what my mother taught me, or my grandmother, or like, our generation kind of coming up versus this one now, like that Love and Hip Hop generation, and it's like God gave me revelation, like who's that lady is the organization, the platform, the movement that is going to help assist in raising young women. because they need help today.
Wow.
Because values are just gone. The images from media, from music, and God just gave me that revelation. Like, who's that lady is going to empower and raise the next generation of women? Wow, through Bible teaching,
to God be the glory.
Through workshops, and that's why I'm just taking this time during the month of February to celebrate and highlight women, because I feel like the things that all the women that have been on the podcast, yourself included, are doing, women need to hear this, because there are certain settings where, you know, women still don't have voices, women still aren't allowed to preach, women still aren't allowed to be deacons, and all this other foolishness that still goes on. And more and more women need to know, like, no, you are capable, you are qualified, you have been called. Do what God is calling you to do, and don't let nobody stop you from doing that.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for that. And I receive, to God be the glory. You know me, you know I'm almost in tears already. But God be the glory.
I'm serious, because I know,
hallelujah.
I know a few women who have Who's That Lady type ministries in them, but for one reason or another, they think their role is in the kitchen, or, you know, just handing some. And I'm not discrediting or disrespecting any of those areas of service in the church, but too often people push women to the kitchen, or you're gonna be a greeter, and you know what I mean. And no. Let me be quiet.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I think all of those ministries have value.
Right.
But to your point, we're all called to something different. And I think the thing that makes Who's That Lady so wonderful and so, you make me cry, so valuable, is this idea that we stand on the shoulders of biblical women, and not from the standpoint of a Proverbs 31 woman, this idea, this unfair idea of perfection, right? I actually preach a sermon, that's actually one of my favorites also. I preach a sermon called I'm Not Your Superwoman, based on the Proverbs 31 woman. And it's just this unfair ideal that we have to be perfect. We are not going to be perfect, right? And so it's this idea that there are so many imperfect women of the Bible who God used to do such amazing things. So if you even look at Jesus' lineage, his genealogy, and all of the imperfect women in it, God birthed perfection out of their imperfections, Jesus. So Jesus was born through a genealogy of imperfection, and he was perfection. And so that's, I think, so my passion for these women in the Bible is kind of what you said, bringing them out of the kitchen, out of the shadows, out of backstage, and bringing them to the forefront. And if I can just share this, they demand to be heard. Whenever I, select I always say I don't choose them, they choose me.
Right.
I remember very specifically, I wanted to do a Who's That Lady lesson on Mary and Magnificat and her whole song and the whole bit. And Elizabeth would not let me go. Elizabeth got me in a headlock, and she's like, hold on. How do you think you're going to get to Mary and not talk about me? And my friend Tanya said, Elizabeth said, hold on, daughter. Sit down. I have some things I want to say. And that's exactly what it was. She's like, you can't get to Mary without talking about me, because I'm amazing. And I professed Christ as the Messiah before anybody else did. She's like, hold on. You're not just going to brush by me. Mary's awesome, and we all know that, but I have a story to tell. Let me tell you about this baby called John, right? So, and that happens all too often. They arrest me. They demand to be heard. Very similar with Orpah and Ruth and Naomi. And everyone loves Ruth, and I get that. Ruth is awesome. I get it. Naomi, great. But Orpah had a story too. She made a decision, and I argue that I don't know that her decision was the wrong decision. It was the right decision for her. And so I'm always going to be an advocate for these women in the Bible, just as I'm an advocate for women in this present day. And I think what you said is spot on. It is time for women to come out of the shadows. This is our time. And in the spirit of the time, this is our winning season. We have a very unique and rare opportunity to come out of the shadows right now. The precedent has been set. You know, the precedent has been set in the presidential election. The precedent has been set on the Senate floor. Nevertheless, she persisted, right? Reclaiming my time. The Me Too, hashtag Me Too. The precedent has been set in Hollywood. We have a window. And if we don't walk through that door, we may regret it. This is our time. And so, literally, as I said, it's time to go for yours because there's nothing holding us back. This is our time. We have to seize this moment. Carpe diem. We have to seize this moment. God is telling us to go forth because he's got our back. He's fortified us. He's already strengthened us. He's already given us everything that we need to succeed. We have to just have the courage to step out there and come out of the shadows.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. I got to pause for a minute because now I was like, yo, we need to just start having Bible talk right now because if you didn't mention Orpah, I was going to because I remember the study you did on Orpah. And I think that's so important. You mentioned the Proverbs. It's like, you know, we limit women to this Proverbs 31 or whatever. And it's like what you're talking about, what you're doing, it has the ability to show women other narratives in the Bible of women because we do get stuck on, okay, Ruth and everybody thinks it's this love story with Boaz, and they don't understand that it was so much deeper than that. And I'm glad you touched on Elizabeth and Mary because I'm teaching out of Luke. And yo, you were absolutely right.
I love Luke.
It's like we get attached to the same reruns in the Bible.
And that's why the ministry is called Who's That Lady?
Right.
Because it's most of the women that I choose to highlight are who is that? I never heard of Lydia. I never heard of Phoebe. Phoebe was a female deacon, honey.
What?
It's like, who's Phoebe? I never heard of Phoebe. Wow. I never heard that name before. Do you know what I mean? So it's who's that lady? But it also, the question is, who are you? Who is this lady that I look at every day in the mirror? So this is the question, and I think that's something we should be asking ourselves constantly because we are ever evolving creatures. I don't want to be the same 6 months from now as I am today. I don't want to. I don't want to. I want to be better. I want to be involved. I want to grow. I want to stretch. I don't want to be the same. So I want to be able to look at myself on a consistent basis and do a check-in and say, who am I today? Who is this lady? Who am I now? Who is God created me to be now? And so, I mean, I just think that we have to examine these stories because they're powerful. They're so powerful. And like I said, most of them are probably 1 or 2 verses.
Right.
But there's a whole story written around them. There is a whole lot happening. I was listening to one of my sermons today, Hidden Figures, where I talked about Leonardo da Vinci's portrait of the Last Supper and how there was something missing from this picture. He had all of this detail, the subtle nuances of the disciples, and Judas holding the bag of money, and John leaning in like the loving disciple, right? All these, Jesus at the center of the table, right? Because Jesus is the center of everything. So he didn't miss subtle details. But one of the questions I asked was, what's wrong with this picture? Yes, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but there's something wrong with this picture. Where are the women? We know they were there, but he did not. And so then it's going into the Gospel of Luke, because Luke, more than any other gospel, highlights women and Jesus' love for women, and Jesus' love and use for women in ministry. And so, but then even Luke says, when he writes it, he said the 12 and some women. So I had a big issue with that because I was like, okay, wait a minute. So you're going to highlight the 12, right? Like the temptations, right? The roots, like they are the highlight, right? And then, oh yeah, and some women follow Jesus too. But these women were powerful women. We're talking about Mary Magdalene.